Hello everyone and welcome to something a little bit different and yet something that you've seen me do before, which is where I go and I play an MMO. However, this is AION, and it is one that you've probably noticed if you've watched my channel that I've played before. And AION's one of those games that just has one of those unique histories that I like going into a little bit. A lot of it's going to be from my memory and my memory only. I might go into the history just a little bit later. But back in the day, I used to be a huge fan of Guild Wars Classic. That's what it's called now, but back then it was just Guild Wars Prophecies. But nowadays, when you say Guild Wars, people usually think Guild Wars 2. So they'll either say Classic Guild Wars or Guild Wars Classic, one of the two, to talk about the original games. I was a huge fan of anything Guild Wars, especially Guild Wars Prophecies, and unfortunately by the time I did start playing it, I played it for years, but it was already getting old at that point, and the community started to slowly die off. And when this started to happen, a lot of things went on. There was a project called Guild Wars Utopia that was supposed to come out, and then that got canceled, and NCSoft and ArenaNet were making new MMOs, but those weren't really lasting as long, and those were shutting down. We had already lost City of Heroes and City of Villains, and so I really started to worry for Guild Wars whenever it started entering more of that self-maintenance mode, where there really wasn't any active involvement in the game anymore. It was just kind of running on autopilot. So around this time, I started to panic. I thought that maybe Guild Wars itself was going to shut down, even though they said that it wasn't. And I was really starting to just get nervous. And then NCSoft announced that they were coming out with a new game. And they basically said, hey, we're coming out with this new MMO. It's going to be called AION. And they really hyped up AION. Now, I wouldn't really be able to tell you, how I felt back then, because this was a long time ago that this game came out. But, they really hyped up AION. They hyped it up as, the next big MMO. They talked about all the things that you could do, just graphically how it was superior to anything that they'd ever done before, that it was going to be this massive game, and then they really just chalked up the fact that you could fly in this game. And flying was, the biggest draw of AION, and anytime you saw a trailer or any sort of preview, they always had to show off the wings. Now, AION, as far as anybody knew, kind of came down to a war between the Elios and the Asmodeans, which they're two sides of the same planet, really. So the planet's cracked in half, and on the dark side you have the Asmodeans, which are more beast-like, and then you have the Elios, which are kind of your stereotypical angel representation, blonde hair, blue-eyed, perfect skin, that sort of thing. Those are the Elios. So it seemed like this really neat faction war between these two sides, and again, the wings and the flying was a big draw, and it just looked really beautiful, gorgeous. All the screenshots that we were given, just the landscapes and everything else, it just looked stunning. And, NCSoft, like I said, they were really hyping up this series. They said, hey, if you like Guild Wars, you will absolutely love AION. And then they placed it up for pre-order. Now, if you pre-ordered the game, you would actually get a special emote in Guild Wars, where you got a set of wings that you could run around with for 30 seconds or something like that. And me being the huge Guild Wars fan that I was, I pre-ordered the game. And the reason why this is so, I guess, important to me is because AION is literally the first game that I have ever pre-ordered in my life. I had never pre-ordered a game until then, and I literally, ran to my closest GameStop, slapped down the $60 on the counter, and said, I want this, thank you. And, because in my head, I thought that the game was gonna sell out. I was like, oh my god. I thought Guild Wars was super, popular, and it was, but it didn't have, the same type of drawing as WoW and stuff. But I was convinced that, the day that AION came out, it was gonna fly off the shelves, and I wasn't going to get my copy, so I was like, nah. So I pre-ordered it, and I got my code for my wings, and oh, I was so excited. So the day of AION's release comes around, and this is kind of where, my story gets a little That's the only way I could put it. But, the day of the pre-order comes around, and I finally, I slapped down my money. And I'm like, or I already did, but I was like, here, here's my receipt, I want my game. and they hand me this beautiful steelbook, like absolutely gorgeous steelbook with the game, and I'm looking it over, and it said, your first 30 days free with the purchase of 30 days. And I was like, what? You know, because like I said, they'd been hyping up this game to be just like Guild Wars, and then all of a sudden it wasn't like Guild Wars because you had to pay monthly. You know, Guild Wars, you just paid for the game and then you never had to pay again. Me, I was broke. I was working at a Wendy's, you know, fast food restaurant. Couldn't afford WoW, and I was like, are you kidding me, you know? So it was just one of those things where it was just really depressing. I couldn't afford the game, and, you know, yeah, you got those days free, but I was really distraught. I remember even asking the guy, like, at GameStop as if he had answers, like, why is it like this, you know? And he was like, I don't know. I didn't make the game. But yeah, so I took it home, and I did pay the $15 to get my 30 free days and then the 30 extra days, and, but sadly back then, like, my computer could not handle AION. Like, graphically, it was just too advanced for my poor little Acer laptop, and, so I didn't really make much progress. And because I'd never really played an MMO outside of Guild Wars, and AION was, like, this whole other world, like, I didn't really get it, so it was just a very, very different experience. But yeah, so that's my story of AION, but, I had to tell the story now because, like, this character creation takes so freaking long. You have no idea, but it's so advanced and it's so beautiful. I mean, look at this game. It's stunning. But we are playing AION Classic, and I'll go into why we're playing AION Classic once we get into the game. So, usually I'd go with Samutari for my name at this point, but I think I want to do something different. Just because I do tend to, like, roleplay with characters sometimes or create stories about them, so... you know, we're gonna give them an actual name and get into the story here and see how good it is.
This is a war without end. A war against two enemies. And the cost will be high. In this crusade against the sun-cursed Elios
Failure's not
and
an
the
option.
hated Ballard, you will lose friends. But you're a Deva of Asmodee, and your duty is your life. You were born to fight this war. For eternity, for Asmodee.
You won't escape.
You need to wake up.
Your destiny? Ascension to a new life as an immortal Deva who walks and flies in the shadow of Asfel. Asfelumbra Deva.
Alright, so now that we're actually in the game, so I did choose to play AION Classic. Do excuse me while I mess with, like, settings and I kind of, like, get my bearings on this. I've played AION several times. That's kind of the thing with this game is I've played it several times. Not a lot changes between the two versions, but, like, even looking at this wardrobe thing, this is completely new to me. I guess I know that it kind of did become a thing where you could, like, pick glamours and stuff, and I know that part of the character customization being advanced as it is that you can dress up your characters and stuff, but, like, even that wardrobe thing, that's a little new to me. It's nice to see some players running around. That's not uncommon, but I just remember when I first loaded into the game for the first time ever that everything just was crazy. Like, there was a bunch of people walking around. I couldn't even move 2 steps, because like I said, back when I first started playing AION, because I had pre-ordered it, it was just so graphically advanced that I just could not run it on my laptop. Like, there was just so much detail to the game and just so much, like, it was such a large game. It took hours to download, like, hours and hours, like half a day to freaking download, and then I couldn't even play it. So the game's always been stunning, and that's one of the things I'll give it as far as, like, it being a good game is that, like, visually, it's very nice. Like, it's very pretty. But anyways, back to the whole AION Classic thing. So, Long story short with Ion is that it used to be pay to play, and I was one of those players that I paid for a few months, but then I just couldn't afford it. And then I was kind of disappointed when they made it free to play. I kind of had that bitter opinion about it. I was kind of angry because, you know, I had been paying for it. I paid $60 for the game, and then I had to, you know, pay all that extra money. Spoken tutorials are weird. That's not different, but I kind of forgot that existed. But you know, I was kind of bitter because I'd paid $60 for the game, and then I'd spent like another like, you know, $30, $45 on it. So this game was already like costing me a lot of money, and then they suddenly were like, well, this game did not do as well as we thought it was going to do. Clearly people don't want to pay to play this. So we're just going to make it free to play. So when Ion became free to play, I kind of ignored it. Again, it was one of those things where I had played it for the 2 months that I had, and then I'd bought another month, because at some point, and like I said, this is a long time ago, so I don't really remember, at some point, I became really addicted to the game. I think at one section, like, I'd gotten past Ascension, so, which you ascend at level 20, I believe. It's either 20 or 25. And I'd gotten past Ascension, and so I'd become a Deva, which I'll explain all that as we go, but it's like I had ascended, I'd become a Deva, I was kind of moving into the main story stuff, and then that's when I was like, wow, this is really, really good. But then I kind of hit a point where I got stuck, and I can't tell you, like, why I got stuck. I'm really not sure, like, what had me stuck. I just know that, like, I wasn't strong enough to tackle, like, enemies, and I wasn't really sure where I was supposed to go. And rather than, like, look up a guide or something to help me, I just kind of I guess, gave in and was like, yeah, no, screw it. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm clearly not strong enough. So I kind of just dropped it. And then when it became free to play, I kind of, like, mentally boycotted the game, because I was like, no, I paid for it. Everybody's playing it for free now. That's so stupid. And I think, like, even though I had, like, a new laptop at this point, I think I just had it in my brain that the game was still probably too advanced for the hardware that I had, and so I really just couldn't play it. I did eventually pick it up because I decided I wanted to give it another try, because I saw an ad where they had added new classes. There was, like, a gunslinger and some other things. And I was like, whoa, they're adding new content, that's pretty cool. So I wanted to try out the Gunslinger class, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. That wasn't a class that was available in Ion Classic just now when I was making a character, so I just went with the default warrior, because that's what I originally played. So your choices are warrior, scout, mage, and priest. And when you ascend, you get, like, 2 branching paths. You can either go, like, DPS with most of the classes, or you have your healing support in your tank. But yeah, free-to-play was just adding more and more content, and I was actually very surprised, because since they made it free-to-play, I kind of expected the game to shut down. But they kept it up, they kept the servers running, and eventually I did play it again a few times. But it wasn't something that I could really fully get into. Then at some point, I think after 2015, it was one of those games where you occasionally get the itch for. You're just like, man, I remember Ion, it was like a really pretty game, and I remember the characters looking really cool, and so it was one of those things where it's like, one day I was like, you know what, I have a YouTube channel now, I've been doing this MMO sampler for a little bit, I was like, I would really like to play Ion. I was like, I think that'd be really, really cool, you know, I think it'd be a fun experience. And so I downloaded the game and I played it, and I think that's the version I played for this channel. I'd have to go back and look, because again, it's been a minute, but I'm pretty sure that's the version I ended up playing and then showing off on this channel for the MMO sampler. And it turns out that NCSoft had actually sold it to, I believe, NCSoft East or NC East or whatever. It was a sister company. It's part of the same company, but it was like the Eastern variant or whatever. And I don't remember who they sold it to exactly, but they had sold Ion, and whoever they sold Ion to basically said, "Oh yes, this awesome game that you have, we don't need all of it." And I don't know what they were thinking, but they said that, like, we don't need all this game in this game. And so they cut out all the filler stuff. They cut out, like, all of, like, a bunch of the sections of the game. And they cut out some of the most beautiful zones in the game. And then they just squished it all together. So the game was a much shorter experience. It was more for those people that wanted to fast track to end content. And it just wasn't good. I played it and I just couldn't get into it because I specifically remembered like huge sections of the game, and I'm like level 25. Within like the first few hours I was already like level 25, and I was already ascended, and I was already in these zones that I had never seen before. And while I want to chalk it up to the fact that I've just become better at playing MMOs, honestly when I looked it up, people were like, yeah, no, you just zoom through the sections because they got rid of everything. They scrapped the game, they cut it in half, like not even 1/4 of the original game exists. And even the starting sections was just so much smaller, and I was so disappointed at this because even though I never really made it like far in AION, I never made it to end content, like not once, because the game just never holds my attention. There's a battle pass now? What in the world? See, this is what I mean, like there's a whole bunch of changes here. Okay, so AION, I will say it's always been kind of pay to win. That's not changed, but I don't know. But I guess like enough people kind of complained about AION being cut down. Enough people kind of got tired of it, like, and said, hey, you took a good game and you made it really bad, that eventually we got AION Classic. And that's kind of what I'm wondering. I guess I'm wondering if it's the same. I'm wondering if AION Classic is still the original game, and it seems that way. It seems like it's the original game so far before they cut everything back. Like I said, they don't have the extra classes, so that's already showing that it's more like the original.
That's for Lumbra.
But it's hard to tell because, again, my memory's kind of foggy. Excuse me. But that's kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to play Classic, because I was hoping that Classic kind of restored all the old maps. Because if I'm going to show off AION, like, I want to show off the whole game and not just part of it. So I was really hoping to do, like, a Let's Play where I could be like, oh, hey, you know, this is what's going on. And, you know, my classic sort of formula. But instead I've just been going on about how I was disappointed with AION from the get-go and then became more disappointed with AION.
AION watch you.
Which I guess would make people wonder why I'm playing this game, but let's just kind of go into what we're seeing here. So, as you can probably see, I have chose to play as an Asmodean. I didn't really go through the first process where they, like, tell you, like, to choose whether you want to be Elios or Asmodean. But in AION Classic, it used to be that you had to pick a side. You had to pick a faction. If you choose to play as an Asmodean, you cannot have an Elios character on the same server. So back in the day, whenever you would play AION, if you wanted to have an Elios and an Asmodean, you would literally have to create accounts on 2 different servers. That way that you could have both. Now, when AION became free to play and they cut it in half, you didn't really have to do that. You could kind of mix and match, from what I remember. And like I said, they added new classes and stuff, and everything was a little bit different. So, but now since we're playing AION Classic, whenever I chose Asmodean, a message popped up and said, hey, if you're going to make an Asmodean, you cannot make an Elios. Are you okay with this? And of course I am, because Asmodeans are my favorite. Now, as I mentioned before, the whole gist of the story here is that the planet that you live upon, which I believe it's called AION, but don't quote me, because I can't really remember. There's a lot of weird names. I'll go into the history probably a little bit later, when I have time to refresh myself on it. But the planet was at one point broken in half. It was broken in half by a massive force, and the people of this planet, they kind of got moved to... They live in different sections of the planet, so there's one side of the planet that doesn't really get much sun. I mean, it looks like it's bright right now. How did I just teleport? Okay, so that's not part of Classic. That's something that they've added that's new, that you can just teleport to locations. And now I'm lost, so whatever. But we're going with it. We're gonna roll with it. But the planet was, of course, it was shattered in two, and there's a dark side of the planet, which is like the inner side. It does get sun, but it's more locked in like an eternal, not an eternal dusk, but it basically has dusk and night. It really doesn't have a lot of day. And because it doesn't have a lot of daylight, the people that reside on this dark side are known as Asmodeans. And the Asmodeans, they have glowing eyes, they have low light vision so that they can see in the dark. They're much more animalistic. You'll notice their toes and stuff. They have dinosaur feet. It's really weird. They have like 3 big toes and then a back like dew claw looking thing. So they got raptor feet for some reason. But they have raptor feet, and then they have these long manes of hair that run down their back. Like, even the females have long manes of hair. And they always end in this tail, but the tail doesn't actually have, like, it's not actually a tail, it's just hair. So it's not like they can, like, wag it or something. It's more like a very long back ponytail that just kind of, like, hangs or whatever. But yeah, so they have the glowing eyes, they've got the mane, they've got the funky feet, and they have a lot of animalistic characteristics. And they tend to have paler skin, and they're more likely to have, like, red eyes or something like that. So I always love the aesthetic of the Asmodeans. And when they do ascend, their wings are, like, all twisted looking. They all have, like, dark, curled feathers that almost look demonic. So I tend to prefer, like, the Asmodeans. Like I said, it's just their aesthetic. And I also kind of like their culture. The Asmodeans, because they live on the dark side of the planet, they have less resources. They kind of have to fight to survive. And so you'll notice that a lot of the Asmodeans are usually raiders and thieves. It's a very backstabbing sort of life that they lead. They're willing to murder their own people, like, in order to survive, because, again, resources are very scarce. And so Asmodeans are more battle-hardened because of this, because from the time they're born, they're basically struggling to survive. And it's kind of all the more reason that I do like the Asmodeans. So when you start your campaign, and I think they've changed the cinematic a little bit. It used to be you actually had to, like, walk around and, like, play a section as a Deva, but I think they moved that to later. Either that or I'm just not remembering it. But the cinematic that we saw shows that the Asmodeans are at war with the Elios. They're called the Sun-Cursed. And essentially those are the people that live on the light side of the planet, that gets all the sun. So their culture tends to be more pristine and proper. They're more educated. They're better, like, I guess you could consider them the beautiful people. And like I said, they're very stereotypical, like, evangelical Christian angel type looking people. You know, they've got the fair, most of them have, like, the fair skin, the light eyes, the light hair, you know, that sort of thing. And they have pure white wings whenever they ascend. Like I said, they look like angels. So, so the Asmodeans and the Elios do not get along. As for why they're fighting, per se, I forget what started the war to begin with. But they are opposing forces, and so they are always on the battlefield with each other. But of course we're eventually going to learn that there's another power here at play, and then we'll have to probably team up with the Elios at some point. At least from what I remember. But yeah, no, so right now what we're doing is, after we had that dream about the war, we essentially wake up. So we fell unconscious, we had that dream about the war, where we're destined to become a Deva. Devas are immortal. They are people that have ascended to a higher power. And the Asmodeans and the Elios believe that Deva are made to win this war for one side because they are blessed with this power. But again, there's, like, some deeper meaning to the power. I just can't remember it right now. So we learn that we're destined to become a deva, but I guess when we wake up, we probably don't remember because we don't talk about the dream. So it's basically telling us what's to come. And when we wake up, we're basically yelled at by a guy that says that we're sleeping on the job and we need to stop. And we're trying to become one of Olgorn's raiders. Now again, the Asmodeans really have to struggle to survive in this land. So the way that they do that is they join massive raider groups. And the raider groups kind of look after each other. They get supplies for one another, that sort of thing. So we're an applicant for Olgorn's raiders. All raiders have to prove themselves. They have to prove their mettle, and they have to prove that they can pay their dues. So we're already sent out on some busy work. The first thing that they have us do, if you've been watching, is they have us, of course, mess around with the sprigs. Now, the sprigs are like these rabbit-type creatures. And again, I'm sorry I'm messing with my settings. It's just everything is so loud in this game that I know that editing is going to be a freaking nightmare. But I mean, it gives me a chance to show you like the options for how you can change like all these settings. Unfortunately, as I'm messing with the dials, I don't really see much of a difference. Like, I'm listening through my headphones as I'm playing this game, and I don't really see it changing much. But anyway, so we went and we killed some sprig workers, you know, just to prove that we have the stuff to be a raider. I guess sprigs, they become confident the more they have in numbers, so we had to cull some of those. And now we're just tasked with just getting fruits, and then, like I said, we'll just do some fetch quests for a minute.
To find the location of your
These
target.
tutorials are so weird. I remember using the map in AION's really
Check the
weird.
quest
So
track.
usually in an MMO, when you pick up a quest, if that quest is in your quest bar, you'll usually get some notification on the map, which will point you in the right direction. Unfortunately, this does not. Like these hill sparkies, like, you know, they're clearly something that we need for a quest. And while they do have an icon near them that says, hey, you know, you can kill these for a quest item, what really kind of bugs me is that there's no special marker, like, on the map. I've definitely been spoiled by Final Fantasy XIV, because Final Fantasy XIV will give quest enemies a special icon on the minimap, and then you can kind of look at them like that way, and you can be like, oh, I need to go in this direction to get to these enemies or whatever. AION's map's a little bit weirder. It doesn't generally show you the markers right away. You actually have to, like, click on the quest, click on the blue highlighted stuff in the quest, click locate, and then it'll show you where it's at. And even then, like, sometimes it doesn't really show you on the map, so it's a lot harder to navigate. But you do have to admit, though, like, this game is so smooth. Like, I think this is the first time I've ever been able to play the game so smoothly now that I'm on a gaming PC. But, like, had I been able to play this game this smoothly, like, back in the day, I feel like AION probably would have been one of those games that I did play for a long, long time. Because, like, it's gorgeous. Like, the enemies, they're not unique, okay? Like, and that makes sense. We're in a beginning area, so we have some goblin-looking thing, we have some bugs, you know? It's not like it stands out. But I just like the atmosphere. I like how everything's so green, but then you still have that, like, dreary, foggy feeling. Oh, I did not miss this. So, whenever your health gets way too low, you do have to sit down and quote-unquote rest. You can heal yourself using bandages, but you want to keep those bandages for as long as possible, because if you have to heal while you're trying to, like, run away or something, combat does get pretty complicated eventually. And so you do kind of run into that situation where you're having to, like, move and heal and all this other stuff. So you don't have time to just sit down or whatever. So you definitely don't want to use your bandages in this beginning area. It's just not worth it. Like, not really. But, I mean, like I said, I've always really liked, like, the foggy atmosphere, the colors, just the vibrancy of everything. Like, even the character creator, like, before Guild Wars 2, because Guild Wars 2 has an amazing character creator. You know, and I'm a sucker for a good character creator. But AION, I think, was, like, the first time that I saw a character creator that was so in-depth on an MMO, and I was just astounded. Like, everything about it I loved. And so getting into the game and just seeing how everything was so vibrant and so colorful, and just that it was so detailed. Like, even playing at the lowest setting, it was such a detailed game. Like, I was just blown away. So it's just, it is one of those things. Yeah, no, the game is just so loud, though. And I'm loud, so, like, if I say the game's loud, I listen to things loud. So if I say it's loud, it's, like, insanely loud. But I feel like it's gonna be a balance. I will say that the one thing I don't like about AION, other than the wonky map, is, like, the quests. Sometimes quests will just pop up on their own. You'll just have to check your quest log every once in a while, because as you level up, new quests will become available to you. So if you're not finding quest NPCs in a town, just check your quest log, because a lot of the times they'll automatically be added, and then you just have to, like, click the check mark so that it actually shows up on your duty list. I do wish there was more customization for the HUD. I just have not yet. I haven't found it yet. But yeah, no, I wish there was a little bit more customization for the HUD, because this HUD does seem, like, super big and clunky. I know it hasn't changed much from, like, at all, or pretty much at all. It really hasn't changed from, like, when it first started, but I just do feel like the UI, like, it could be a lot better. Especially, like, the keybinds and stuff. I feel like those could be a lot better, too. But yeah, no, this is just really super comfortable to play. But as far as quest goes, they are level locked. So if you can't find any quests and you feel like there's probably nothing for you to do in an area, always just check your quest list before you leave, because chances are there's quests available and you've just missed them somehow. But yeah, no, I love the detail on all the creatures. I love how, I love the fact that you get an indication when they can be looted, but I thought back in the day they didn't give the indication to be looted unless they had loot, but now I'm actually second guessing that, because I don't think that's true. I do wish that there was, like, an auto loot feature, and I feel like there is, I just can't find it at the moment. But this is a game where you do have to worry about inventory space, and it is going to fill up quite fast, because not only do you have your typical, like, enemies that drop junk, but there is a gathering system in this game. I know you've already seen me probably mess with the plant called Asfa. One of the weird things about AION is that it kind of runs like Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like it runs off of a random number generator as to whether you, like, succeed or fail. So you could be sitting there gathering the Asfa, and it's based on your collection skill, but also just chance. And I always thought that was so weird, because, you know, in WoW, if you see a plant, you can usually just grab the plant. Same with, like, Guild Wars or Elder Scrolls or whatever. But yeah, no, in AION, you have to have a certain collection skill in order to grab certain plants. And these plants are useful, because you're going to need them for potions and stuff. But I remember the first time I started gathering the Asfa, and I was just like, why is there a failure bar? And then when you do fail, the entire plant disappears. And I just remember becoming so salty when I would, like, fail to collect something. Especially if it was, like, a more rare plant that was harder to find. I would just get so freaking frustrated. Gold, I don't really remember being too important, but now that I'm thinking about it, I do know that there are some things that you do need to purchase. Enemies are pretty much prone to dropping gear and stuff, but I don't think it would hurt to actually just buy gear if you can. But again, I don't remember. Like, my memory is so fuzzy about a lot of this. I do remember that I did take a lot of time in the starting zone to just level up. So that is something that I did tend to do quite a bit. I do like to overlevel in starting zones. I probably would normally stay out here until I was, like, level 10, but I'm not going to make you guys suffer through that. Instead, I'm just going to go until I'm, like, level 5-ish or so, and then, oh, that's not what I thought that was going to do. And I'm probably just going to go to level 5-ish or so, and then just go to the main village where Ulgorn is. So, because again, right now it's just fetch quest. It's just supposed to be giving you objectives so that you can kind of get used to the controls. So, and like I said, the story's really not going anywhere right now. We're literally just a candidate trying to get into Ulgorn's raiders. Our character doesn't really have a past, so it kind of, like, leaves it open. So if you are a role player, you can kind of just decide what you want to do. My first character, oh my god, what was her name? I don't remember my first character's name. I know it was something simple. Like, it was very close to my name, I believe, my actual name. And I don't know why. I think it's because I already had, like, a character in mind. Oh. Well, if you want to get cringe, I named my character very similar to myself. I believe her name was Miarine, but don't quote me on that. It was either Maya or Miarine. I think it might have been the first time I used the character name Maya. Because again, it's close to my name, so, and it's just been a name I've been using since. I just, like, for different characters, I just spell it different each time. But, so I think the character was Maya, now that I'm saying it. So anyways, I was dating somebody at the time who did not play games. And, I was a fanfiction writer because, you know, I have to be cringe like that, I suppose. And because I was a fanfiction writer, I created a spellcaster which looked like a super feminine version of my girlfriend at the time. And then I had Maya, who was my main character, who was supposed to embody what I would like to look like in a fantasy setting, which I kind of laugh about now because she had, like, super short hair, like super short spiky hair, but she had a super, like, feminine face, but then she had a jacked body, and I don't know, my tastes have changed quite a bit when it comes to characters, and I kind of laugh about it now because that's the difference between being, like, 19 and then being nearly 32, is that your tastes do tend to change a little bit. They kind of mature with you. So now I go for different types of characters. You know, I'm not scared to have, like, a feminine warrior or something, you know. Not all my characters have to look like a super butch lesbian all the time, which, no offense to butch lesbians, because I am one, so, you know, in real life, but, you know, there's this, you know, I just don't really care as much anymore, about having super feminine characters. I wanna get cute outfits, like, not like cute outfits, but, like, I don't know. And see, there's those weird feet. Like, that's what I was talking about. She's got weird feet. I have this thing about weird feet, so I'm sorry for all you feet people that might watch my videos, but, I'm not into feet, and this is off topic, because my ADHD brain, like, sorry, I was playing Monster Hunter Rise, and I adore the twins. If you don't know who they are, I'm sorry for you. And they're adorable. Anyways, they're a race called Wyverians. And I did not know that Wyverians only have 4 fingers, and they have tiny feet, like midget feet, even though they're normal-sized people. Like, normal-sized people, midget feet. And, 4 fingers. And it weirds me out now that I know that. And now I can never look at them the same. Which is kind of disappointing because I really have, like, not a crush, but I do think one of the twins is, like, super freaking cute. And, I do think she would be total waifu material. And so I ordered a plastic standee from the Capcom store. And this is before I knew about their fingers and their feet. And I was seriously tempted to cancel my order. I was so tempted to cancel my order because they have the weird fingers and feet. Because that's how against that stuff I am. Like, I don't know. It was random. But yeah, I never noticed, because I've always played this game in, like, low res and stuff, I have never once paid attention to the Asmodeans' feet. I knew that they had I knew that they had claws, like, on their hands, and I knew that they had the back manes, but I never knew that they had raptor feet until today, so I'm kind of disturbed. I think it's interesting, but I am kind of weirded out. I would never not play an Asmodean, but yeah, no. So if you're wondering why I'm collecting the Asfa, it's because there is a quest where a guy's gonna ask for 10 of them, so it's just best to kind of get it out of the way so that you don't have to backtrack. Granted, this stuff kind of grows everywhere, so you don't really have to worry about it too much, but I already know that the quest exists, so I'm just kind of doing it ahead of time. kind of getting my collection points up. The sooner that you can get your collection up, the better. So I would say just go for it. I kind of forgot what I collected from that first ASFA, but you can collect from the ASFA plants multiple times. Sometimes it will just be a one-time thing, especially if you fail. But sometimes you can get like 2 or 3 pulls from a plant, so if you find them, just go ahead and collect them. Especially when it comes to making potions later, because these are like major potion components. So the more you have of the ASFA plant, just the better. And if nothing else, you can just sell it for gold, you know, so it's no big deal. But yeah, no, I totally forgot what I was talking about. Oh, fan fictions, right. So, yeah, no, I had a girlfriend at the time that I thought would be a good idea if I made her in a video game, because that's what I used to do back in the day, because I was really freaking stupid. So, you know, 19, 20-year-old me was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make this beautiful character for my girlfriend, and then I'm gonna have this weird-looking character for myself, and they're gonna be in love. I even made a comic for it. Like, I was so lame. But yeah, so I had my original character, and it was Maya, and then I believe the girlfriend character was just named after her, like her nickname. So it was literally just Maya and Taz, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But then when I played AION again, I don't remember if I actually came up with a new name for my character. You can, in the new, like, condensed AION, they did add some, like, options for customization. I think you can still do it. I think you can still have the odd eyes if you go into, like, the advanced options or whatever for character creator, but I just didn't want to mess with it. But yeah, you can have, like, odd eye colors. You can have the heterochromia. And so I made, like, a character with, like, one blue eye, one yellow eye. I gave her, like, more hair, and I gave her pointy ears. I don't know, there was a bunch of options that you could choose. And at the time, I was like, oh man, this character looks amazing. And then I made, like, some super, like, K-pop idol-looking spellcaster. And I was like, oh man, this one looks cool, too. And then I did the cringy thing again. I'm like, they're in love. And I was gonna write a fanfiction about it. I promise I'm not gonna write a fanfiction about this character. Okay, I can't even promise that, because I did say that I might roleplay with this character. So I don't know, but anyways, I don't even know if AION has, like, a roleplay community. But no, I ended up making that character, and I don't know, I thought she looked cool. But have you ever, like, made a character in a game, and then you look back on them later, and you're just like, why did I make this character? They're so ugly. That's honestly how I feel about this character that I made, like, before, on the condensed AION, the condensed milk AION. I seriously feel like I made, like, the ugliest character, and I was like, man, like, I thought that this was hot. Like, I don't get it. So, ay. This person's just been staring at this plant. Like, sometimes they'll collect it and sometimes they won't. So, like, right now they're collecting it, but otherwise they've just been standing there. I don't know if it's because, like, they're lagging, because they may not, like, have something that can handle the game, per se. Or if they're just, like, I don't know, contemplating life, having an existential crisis because they're in this MMO instead of any other MMO. See, like, right there, I stopped gathering, so either that meant that they collected the plant too much and there was no more, or just something halted that process. When that does happen, there's, like, a little poof of smoke, and, I don't know, the plant disappears and your character looks angry, but other than that, there's no consequence for not being able to gather something, so. We are almost to the village, and then once we're in the village, we're just gonna have a bunch of stuff to do. Go figure. More fetch quest stuff. So, see, I do love the colors. So, okay, so see, like, I came into the village and immediately it gives me a campaign quest. That's gonna happen a lot. You're gonna enter a new place, it's gonna give you a campaign quest. This is your obelisk. If you have played Final Fantasy XIV, this does kind of work as your aetheryte. You do have to pay a gold in order to attune to it, but it's really just not an expensive sort of thing. But it's for when you
Carry
die.
out
So when you
missions to
die,
create your
if you
own
don't
AION
have like
story.
an item that can resurrect you on the spot, you're gonna return to the last obelisk that you attune to. Okay, and then this is one of the quests that we had earlier as soon as we reached like level 3. So certain classes do have trainers, and because I'm a warrior, I would naturally go to a warrior trainer. They sell you manuals, which, again, manuals are not expensive. But if you want to learn new skills, even passive ones, for like HP increases and stuff, you do have to buy the manuals. They are a one-time purchase, as I'm, like buying all of them now. You'll see what ones are available and what ones aren't. Again, it's like the guy said, you could buy all the manuals ahead of time so that you already have them and you don't have to keep going back to a trainer, but I do want to use my gold for something else, so I'm literally just going to buy the ones that are available for use. This will give me one actual skill that I can use at the moment, and then another skill will open up if I do eventually buy a shield and then equip it to my character. As far as warrior goes, there are 2 paths that you can take with warrior. You can either do tank or DPS. I plan to do the DPS because I'm not really a tank sort of person. I don't like the responsibility of tanking, and I've never liked tanking. I believe Gladiator is the DPS path, and then I forget what the I think it is Paladin or something like that. That's the tank class, but I don't really remember. I'll have to like look at those later. And this game does have emotes and stuff. I didn't really use the emotes a lot back in the day. I mean, even when it was active, I didn't really use them a lot because I didn't really know like the shortcut for them. So yeah, so we did open up this new power. And we can see other powers that we can put on our bar. Those might be combo ones, but I'm not really sure. I'll have to go through my skills later when I just have more patience to look at them all. So, but yeah, so now we have our we're finishing up the quest that we started all the way back at that camp. And then we, of course, have the main quest. The campaign quest that opened up for us, which campaign quests are marked by yellow arrows. So, and this guy's just kind of explaining to us just how hard it is as a raider. Basically, he's saying that they're behind on their quotas. So they're behind on grain and everything else. And if they are behind on quotas, then people don't get paid. And if people don't get paid, then the camp starts going into disarray. And everything kind of starts falling apart, so. And then this guy's gonna talk to us, and he's gonna give us our first quest, which he's just gonna tell us that he wants to give us a mission, because that's what we're supposed to do as raiders, and then he just wants us to attune to the obelisk. Again, he's still just kind of following in the footsteps of tutorial land, but as soon as we do the one thing, then we're gonna get into like the main missions, and the stuff that's gonna start driving the story forward. So coming back to this about a day or so later, I kind of forgot where we left off. So we were talking about an obelisk. Yes, it's so very fascinating. So this guy's just giving us a little bit of background. He is Olgorn. He is the raider leader, and so he basically is just talking like he's the big boss. Now we already did attune to the obelisk, so I thought maybe I could just turn in the quest, but unfortunately I couldn't. That's why I went ahead and talked to him again. He gave us like a little bit of history. I did have to click on the obelisk a second time. This is why, like, it's kind of fun going back, like, knowing already what to do, but then, of course, you always run into those things where you kind of do things a little out of order, and then you have to, like, go do them a second time, which isn't that bad. I noticed that I'm getting a lot of items that I've never actually, like, used before, so this item that he's giving me now, I don't remember that ever being in the original. There's a lot of items that I'm not really sure, like, what to do, like, what I'm supposed to do with it. Here's that thing I may have mentioned before where you go into your quest list and then you have like a bunch of things like on your quest list. You saw that I had a bunch of red. Basically, those don't open up until you're at the appropriate level, and like I said, sometimes these people will not have markers for quests. That's what made AION a little weird. What made AION a little bit strange was that sometimes quests wouldn't show up at markers. There was just stuff that automatically opened up when you were at a certain level. And I decided I wanted to go around and talk to some of the NPCs. I can't say that there's a lot of, like, characters that are very memorable, so I clicked on this lady here, and I just expected her to give me some history, but instead she had a quest. And like I said, the quest never showed up. This person didn't have any indicator that she had a quest. I'm not sure if this is the game being broken or what actually happened here, because whenever I played Ion before, I'm pretty sure that I remembered that in Classic Ion, you could see when everybody had a quest. So this is just like one of those instances where I don't know if the game's bugged or something. I don't know if this is something that they changed. I guess the weird thing about it is that they call it Ion Classic, and yet they are still adding new things, because there's a lot of stuff I haven't seen before. And it's not so much the terrain and the characters, it's more just, like I said, the items, the events, the battle passes, things like that. So she wants us to get us some supplies. Again, it's just more fetch quests, which isn't bad because I do remember that it was kind of hard to level up in the original version. When I came back and did the free-to-play version, it wasn't so bad, but I do know that when I came back, or when I was playing Classic, I know that it took me a little while to level up. And I don't know if that's because I wasn't very familiar with MMOs at the time, but it was something. So, at this point, I'm kind of realizing that I'm running low on Zenny, I think is what it's called, is the money. I think it's called Zenny. But yeah, I was kind of running low on Zenny, and the thing is I do want to buy some supplies. I thought that enemies dropped a lot more armor and weapons, and maybe back in the day they did, or maybe I'm just thinking of the free-to-play version. Also, I did want to upgrade my cube, because as you can see, we don't really have that much inventory space. So one of those inventory bags is only for special items, like one-use items, which are usually quest items, and I don't know why they give us so much inventory for that, because you should not be picking up that many quests that you have those one-use items, those unique quest items, but for some odd reason, it looks like their inventory space is almost like bigger than our actual inventory space. So I wanted to go ahead and upgrade my cube so that I had a little bit more space. This is something that you'll want to upgrade over time, because again, you're not only just collecting items, for sale and stuff. You'll get armor and weapons and everything else. It's not like Final Fantasy XIV. There's no special armory chest. So you do want to keep an eye on your inventory space. Also, not to mention, there are plants that you can gather and use for potions, and the potions do come in handy. I do remember that in Classic, there was a place where I ended up using a lot of potions, so that is something that you'll want to do in the future. So, and here I'm just buying some armor because, again, I did pick up like one piece of armor that I could use while I was fighting monsters in the beginning area. It's definitely not enough. My HP was going down way too slow, and even with the increase from the manuals that I bought, I just felt like I could use like some extra pieces. So I decided to buy some here. Because we are getting ready to head to like one of my favorite places in the game that I remember from the early game, and that is like, I think it's called Lake Tenupra. And this is kind of the frustrating thing about Ion, is that, like, I can't really tell you, like, off the top of my head, like, any characters that I remember. There is no NPC that really stood out to me. Usually in an MMO, I'll latch on to a couple of them. So, like, in Guild Wars, you know, I liked Lady Althea. What was the freaking necromancer's name? I always say Emelisa, but it's not, because Emelisa was the necromancer I made, because I really liked the necromancer, but I always forget her name. And it wasn't Liv, but because I know that there is one named Liv, but that's not who it's not who it is. Anyways, but no, Lady Althea was definitely one of my favorites. She's the early Mesmer teacher in Final Fantasy, or not Final Fantasy, Guild Wars Prophecies. Oh, I'm getting my MMOs mixed up now. Final Fantasy XIV, oh my gosh, I play that so much. I could just list off characters like all day long, because all of them are so memorable. But yeah, no, Guild Wars Prophecies, definitely, freaking Lady Althea was one of my favorites. And I don't even know why I ended up liking her so much. But with Ion, the thing is like, you can definitely tell that there's a story here. This place has like a deep history. The characters all look really nice. Like I said, the game is beautiful. I love the ambiance of it. I love just the whole aesthetic of Asmodai. Like, I think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. But the problem here is that it's missing something. It's missing some element. It's really missing that draw. You know, it kind of gets you curious with the introduction, but even then the introduction doesn't really pull me in. I mean, even with Guild Wars had a very simple, like, premise. It basically was like, this is the final days of Ascalon. But even then, you're like, oh, this is the final days. What happened in the final days? And I don't know, there's just something about the intro to this story that kind of, like, fell short. And I really wish that there was more to it.
On the shore northeast of Lake Tunapre are a few
See, I love the
Spriggans.
lake.
If you look around a bit, you should
I
find
don't care about the
great
Spriggans,
snakes.
though. But yeah, no, Lake Tenebra, or however you want to say it, like, it's just, it's so pretty. I just remember, like, without even seeing it, because we haven't been there yet, I remember playing Ion, and there was this massive tree in the middle of the lake. There's, like, a massive, massive tree. It's, like, Yggdrasil level massive. And then I remember looking up into the sky, and I believe,
Talk
if
to a
I'm
class
correct,
instructor
which, like I
about
said, I haven't
necessary
seen it
skills.
yet, I believe that in the sky there was a giant whale. Like, I believe that there was, like, a giant, like, whale-like creature, like, soaring through the sky, and the sky was just full of stars. And then that was when I was like, damn, like, this game is beautiful. This game deserves more credit. But it doesn't get credit because, again, it fell so short in so many things. It was one of those games that kind of just, like, it was trying to be, like, cutting edge, unique, and it really fell short. Like, it really, really, really fell short. And it's because, again, it just didn't grip you from the beginning, had a lot of history, just didn't really reach that history. Oh yeah, this is the dude that wanted the herbs, though. So remember I told you we had to, like, collect the Asfa and whatever, and that you wanted to do it early? That's because this guy will take it. He basically was like, oh yeah, use 10 Asfa, it creates a potion, yada yada yada, it's for pain relief. He kind of goes back into that whole, like, raiding life is hard. We don't have a lot of, like, supplies and money, so we use the Asfa instead. But yeah, that's basically just to tell you, like, hey, at some point you can use Asfa to make potions, you're welcome. And then this quest, he's looking for Olgorn's daughter. Now, Olgorn's daughter, Ray, I guess is a troublemaker. An absolute troublemaker. She wants to be a raider, and the long story short is that she's run away. And because because they think that the daughter might be in danger, we're sent to go look for her. Because, yeah, if she's not found, we'll be in trouble. But anyways, that's pretty much where I'm going to leave this first part off. I'm not really sure how I want to continue this series, or if I want to continue the series. I'm not very entertaining or used to talking, so... but yeah, if you like this series and you want to see more, go ahead and leave me a like. If you want to, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I've got other goods and MMOs other than this one, so if that's something you're interested, go ahead and stick around. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Ciao.